Hey, get inspired, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Life Inspired. This is a show where we talk all about how people are following God and how God's turned their trajectory to a new inspired path. And so most people have several turning point moments in their lives, but we like to say life was going along, there was a ... and then God stepped in moment, and now you're walking and following some inspired thing that God's got you doing. So you can watch this show and share this show from our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, Inspired Homes website, or we also have now in lifeinspiredshow.com, and you can find it and share it there. We do ask, if you can, that you would subscribe to and like our stuff, because that helps us get more exposure for these great stories about people. And if you've got somebody that you know needs to tell their story, messages about that, we'd love to find out their story and share their story as well. Today, my guest is Mr. Terry Cegielski,
Hi.
whom I first met because your wife sold real estate with me at Remax 100.
That is correct.
So yeah,
Just a few years ago.
just a few. It was really not that many. So so I have no idea what turning point story you want to share. I know most people have several. But what I want to ask you is, kind of what was life like before this particular turning point that you're going to talk about? What was the turning point? And then, so now how are you inspired afterwards? So what are you going to tell us about, Terry?
Well, like many people, Sheila and I were enjoying ourselves, working hard, doing what we needed to do to get by. We've both always been Christians.
Always born into it, just...
Yeah, just always knew that Christ was the head of our lives.
Okay.
And so we're going along and enjoying ourselves and doing what we need to do. We have one son, Jeremy, and then and a couple of grandchildren. Well, in 2014, in May of 2014, Sheila, being the baby of 10, her first sibling passed away in the middle of May.
Oh, I don't think I knew that part.
And it rocked her family.
Right.
And about 2 weeks later, our only child, Jeremy, died suddenly and unexpectedly from a heart attack.
And he was very young.
He was young, he was healthy. It was absolute surprise. Obviously an unpleasant surprise. But that was our moment when all of a sudden we went from, honestly, being very angry with God for a couple of months, because it's just not the way it's supposed to be. We're not supposed to outlive our children.
Nope.
But God has other plans. And with that unpleasant experience, a couple months later, at our church, Granger Community Church, there was a program offered for the very first time.
Oh, really?
Called Grief Share. And Grief Share is a national program helping folks who recently lost loved ones. And I asked Sheila, when's that program begin? And she said it was the following Monday, I believe. And I said, I think I'm going to go check it out. She, in turn, said, all right, I'll come with you.
Okay.
I fully expected to go alone.
Okay.
So we attended, and at the time it was a 13-week session, once a week. We ended up bawling every week. But that was the beginning of our healing as well. And so we learned a couple of things through that experience. One is that our children, our loved ones, everything we have, it's not ours. It's His. It's God's. And then secondly, that moment of Jeremy's death propelled us into the Grief Share program, because we took it for ourselves, as I said first. And it was very healing and very helpful. We got such benefit from it that we ended up jumping in, and every session since then, it's offered twice a year at our church. Every session since then, we've been involved as facilitators, because grief is something that is not obvious.
Right.
When somebody has a broken arm, you see the cast, so it's visual. With grief, usually it's inside. And as a result, we have learned grace, giving people more grace than probably we used to, because you just never know the other person's story and what they're going through.
Right, right. I wondered if what you'd be talking about was Jeremy's passing. I didn't know for sure if that's what you were going to talk about today. And I would like to publicly thank you in front of everybody for your ministry. Not only your ministry to so many who I don't have a clue, people that you've had at your table at Grief Share for over these years. But when my mom passed, you ministered to my dad.
Yes.
And last December, my sister-in-law passed, and you have been so kind to my brother. And I just thank you for that. And I'm going to tell Rick to watch. And pain is not pleasant, and none of us like it, but we all go through it. But I do love to see how when someone is willing to be used, God allows our pain to be used to bless somebody else. You guys have blessed so many people. And I remember you telling me once, because Sheila was one of 10 and they all had multiple children and you guys had one, part of your anger with God was, I have one and you took my only one.
Didn't seem fair. But God knew what he was doing, as he always does. And he used that, as I said, to propel us into helping others. Would we have wanted it differently? Certainly, certainly. But there has been a great help to us and to others through Jeremy's passing. So he continues.
He's still blessing people.
He continues, yes.
That's so cool.
Yes.
And then you have a great relationship with your daughter-in-law and your grandkids.
Leslie and our two grandchildren, Violet, who has me wrapped
just
around
a
her
little
finger,
bit, huh, Grandpa?
and Nathan, and they're just wonderful. At the time of Jeremy's death, they lived in Chicago.
Right.
And we were concerned in the following months, if anything happened to Leslie, it would take us hours to get to the kids. So Leslie, and this is another wonderful thing that has come out of the whole scenario, Leslie and the grandkids have moved here locally. They just recently bought their first home ever in Osceola.
Oh, yay.
And so we
a
have
great
them
realtor
local.
named Sheila that helped him buy it, right?
Indeed, indeed.
Very cool. And so that's their first home, and they live in Osceola, so they're close.
Yep. So we are just minutes instead of hours away from
That's great. And then, so where do Leslie's parents live? Is she involved in her parents' lives, or have you guys kind of become her parents?
Leslie's father passed away before Jeremy.
Wow.
Her mother is local in Elkhart.
Okay.
But Sheila and I are most involved in
That's
Leslie's
so cool.
life.
That's so cool. That's so cool. Very cool. And the kids are how old now?
Nathan is 15. He's at Penn.
Wow.
And Violet is 10.
Wow. Very
And
cool.
we blinked and they got old overnight.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I guess it was 6 years ago.
Yep.
That's just crazy.
In May, it'll be 6 years.
So, if someone, I know so many friends that have lost loved ones.
Indeed.
And if someone has just lost a loved one, when's the right time to start Grief Share?
I've got to say that's up to the individual.
That's what I thought.
And the reason I say that is because we've had some who have just been weeks out from the death of their loved one.
Just happened and they're in.
And they know they need help and they jumped in. I admire that. Sheila and I, it took us a few months to wrap ourselves around searching for help. So I would say it's up to the individual, but in the same breath,
and don't you have some that wait years? They don't do it for
indeed.
a long time.
We've had some that have waited over 10 years. But all in all, there's great benefit to being able to be in a room in a safe environment where you know that everybody around you has gone through what you have experienced. It's healing.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you for the program. Thank you for running it. Thank you for sharing with us today. So grateful.
Pleasure.
To have you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you guys, if you would want to meet with Terry, I know that he would because he reached out to my brother and said, yes, your brother's in town. And my brother doesn't even live here. He lives in Ohio. And grief share is all over the country. So if you're sharing this with somebody that lost a loved one in Tennessee or California or whatever, we found grief share for my brother in Ohio and for my niece and nephew in Virginia. So it's all over the country, and I just can't more highly recommend it. My brother's actually in 2 groups. He's going to one at one church on a Sunday, and he gets the exact same video the next night on Monday night in a different place like 30 minutes away.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, so it's great because like when he went one Sunday, he got one message, and he was a little bit kind of, I don't know if, again, angry at God about something or whatever, and then he saw the same exact message the next night, and he got hope out of the same message. So it just depends on where you are. I mean, this was I guess a little more than 24 hours later, so same week, and he got a different thing. So can people go through Grief Share twice? Like they could go through it?
Absolutely. You pay once, get the book, you're in, and after that, you can come back as many times as you want over the years. Yes.
So it's been very helpful for him. I have a friend that lives in Nevada who's lost a loved one in December, and I was supposed to get her the link and I didn't send it to her, so I will do that, Debbie. So thank you so much for being here, Terry.
What a pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank you for having me.
And if you guys want to get in touch with him again, just message us. You can email us at inspiredhomes.com, team@inspiredhomes.com is our email address, or just find us on the YouTube channel or the Facebook page and message us, and we'll put you in contact with Terry. Thanks for watching. You guys have a great week. Bye-bye.